And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call this meeting to order. Dr. Proctor, can you verify we have a quorum, sir?
Yes, sir, we did.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas, would you provide the invocation, please?
Absolutely. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day. I just thank you and praise you for all your blessings, Lord. I just pray that you be with us, guide us, protect us, and keep us safe. Help the men and women out there serving and protecting our community. And thank you for all the guests that are here tonight. Thank you for the mayor and council for all they're going to do and continue to do. And I just pray your blessings. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thanks, sir. Please, sir.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I go any further, for those of you with us this evening, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. If you'll please sign in, we'd love to know who all is with us. Council, you have an agenda before you that was electronically distributed. Yield the floor for a motion.
Make a motion that we adopt the agenda as is.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed, same. Thank you, council. And this evening, we have some special guests with us who represent Bragg. And so what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to give you just a few moments to talk about your organization and the mission and the purpose of what Bragg is, and also welcome you to the First Mountain City. So thank you for being with us. If you'll come on up and introduce yourself, and let's talk about Bragg. That's fine. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us. Bragg is this is our 45th year of riding all the way across the state. And we are here to provide affordable, quality, family-friendly bicycle rides across the state. So we've been doing it every year. This year we are going from Rome all the way to Hartwell over 7 days. Each night we stop in a different city and we really try and get a feel for the cultural vibrancy of every little small town in Georgia. So every year we change the route. I think last time we were here was 2018 and it was a wonderful stop and we are so thankful that you guys are here. Today's route was the hardest of the entire 400 miles we're doing this year. Coming out of Cartersville, we went over Johnson Mountain Road and people were cussing my name. 3,500 feet of elevation, everybody was climbing. I think we had more walkers than riders today. A lot of people were walking over some of those hills, but it was gorgeous. And right when we pulled into Pickens County, we had the sheriff was there with 3 of their representatives and they were welcoming people in. They gave us get out of jail free cards. I don't know. So yeah, and everybody's been great. I know we worked with the city council and the commissioners. It's been such a wonderful visit here in Jasper, and everybody's really been opening up their arms. We're staying at the school, the elementary school right here in Leading Park. If you get a chance to pass by it, there's a ton of tents and people staying in the city. We just came from dinner downtown, and it's pretty packed down there. So we're excited to bring almost 1,000 folks on bikes to see Jasper and the First Mountain City, and you guys have been very hospitable. And we thank you so much for welcoming us warmly into your city.
Thank you, sir. What was your official count on folks?
I think right now we're almost at 900. The hills scare people away sometimes.
Sure.
So sometimes we take a little dip, but yeah, it's been great and everybody's been really good troopers. So we're almost at 900 right at the moment. So it's been wonderful to bring all these people in Jasper.
That's a good group of folks.
Yeah, we got John Atkins here. He's been volunteering for rapid rides on the motorcycle. He's EMS going down the route, keeping everybody safe. So we had to patch up some people here and there. Yeah, we got a ton of great group of volunteers that come along with us and help us out. So it's great to recognize them sometimes as all their hard work they've done to keep us safe on the road.
Well, thank y'all for visiting Jasper, and thank you for enjoying what our community has to offer, including all the wonderful local businesses. Our community is very excited to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
to be here. Yeah. Before my phone rings off the hook, I get a million phone calls a day. But thank you guys for having us so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Council, next on your agenda, presentations, I have Rushton Company, Auditor's presentation. Mr. Sam. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to go through the results of the audit. I hope you all are as well. You have a packet from me that has the big report 2 letters and then also a presentation. So I'm going to go through the presentation, which is the highlights that I think are important, but feel free to ask any questions or any concerns you might have. I'm happy to answer those as we go along. Let's see. Turn on my clicker here. Okay, so of course, we're the auditors with Rushton and Company. We appreciate the help from finance and different folks throughout the city that were helping us get the job completed. I know that's duties outside their normal line of work, and so we appreciate that, and they were very helpful with all of that. So the number one reason you hire us is because you're looking for an audit opinion. And so as the auditor, that's our job, is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And we do that under governmental auditing standards. And so the city's responsibility, of course, are the financial statements. And then we are responsible for that opinion there. And so that we did have an unmodified opinion as of December 31st, 2024. Happy to report that. Now, as you know, and I think I've explained many times before, the government-wide financial statements, these are the full accrual statements for the city. So that's taking all the business type, all the government type activities, adding those together, and then showing the results of that on a full accrual basis. So it includes things like pension, whereas you wouldn't see that in the general fund, or long-term debt, or things of that nature. And so those are located on the statement of net position, which is on pages 15 and 16. And then we also have the statement of activities, which is on page 17, and that's basically the income statement. Now, looking at the slide here, you can see this is government-wide net position. Each one of these buckets, there's 3 buckets up there. You can see the largest bucket is by far the net investment in capital assets. And that is because the city runs a very capital-intensive project. That's the city, right? You own roads and water treatment type stuff. And so that number is, you compare, is $25.7 million this year compared to $23.2 million over the prior year. And so that's that big blue column there, or the big blue bar for each year. This is 3 years, of course, and you can see the unrestricted, or the restricted piece up there is the red portion. And so that was about $2.5 million last year, and then it's about $2.2 million this year. So that shrunk just a little bit. But overall, you can see your total, and then of course the green is whatever's left over. So that's the unrestricted part of your net position. That is what you have to make decisions with as a council. If you look at the total of those 2 bars there, you can see that this year, $33.1 million versus $31.6 million. And so that difference between those two was a change in net position of about $1.6 million. And then we had an adjustment to equity for about $103,000, and that was for a retroactive statement for a new accounting principle. So that was your compensated absences, and I'll dive into that a little bit later. Now, if you look at that statement of activities, this is the changes between the statement of activities over several years. You can see that from the prior year, you had about $1.2 million profit, and about $1.5 million this year. Your charges for services are up, capital grants have increased quite a bit, and taxes are up across the board. I'm starting to wonder if taxes ever go back down again. They seem to be just growing each and every year, and I see that across many of the governments that we audit. Okay, so general fund balance. This is a measure of your liquidity. How much do we have to spend for the next year? And so you can see that it's pretty similar to the prior year. That large column there, that's your unassigned fund balance. And so you've got some restricted and non-spendable, but they're really, really little compared to that unassigned piece. So the unassigned this year is up about $135,000, 3.9 million versus 3.8 million last year. Now, what does that really mean? That if you were to ask, what could that cover in expenses for us the next year? And so it basically in 2023, it would cover about 61% of next year's general fund expenditures. And so it's about 54% this year. So that's down just a little bit, as you'll see. Expenses have gone up a little bit. And those other restricted and non-spendable, those are due to some prepaids and some other restrictions on your money on those assets there. Now here we have the general fund revenue and expenditures. You see the yellow line is your revenue. That is up about 13% or $863,000. The blue line is your expenditures. And so you can see the gap between those is your operating income. So that's what you're receiving from operations. So you can see that got squeezed a little bit due to an increase in expenditures here. Expenditures are up about 18% versus revenue about 13%, like I mentioned. A lot of that is personnel expenses in your public safety, fire and police, both of those are up. There's also some capital outlay there as well, so that's where those increases are. I like to show this graph to you to just kind of see where is our money coming from. So this shows your diversity across the revenues that are coming into the city. You can see here the 31% that makes up most of the bar there. That's your lost. And then the 25% there in the red, that is property tax. So if you take both of those together, that's about 56% of the revenues that the city of Jasper receives in the general fund. Now on the opposite side, you can see this is expenditures by function. And so you can see the large purple area there, that is by far the largest, and it is 64%. And so that's your public safety. And I looked up the average of that is you typically in the state of Georgia about 35 or 50%. So it kind of jumped off the page at me and think, oh, that's making up a pretty substantial portion of their budget. So I wanted to make sure to point that out to you. But it's nice to see this in a graphical representation. The numbers don't always give us the full story that we're looking for. Now the water and sewer fund, you can see the yellow line, which is your revenues, and those are up about 8% this year. And then you can see your expenditures, which is the blue line there, and they're up about 1.2%. Now you look in the middle there, you can see what happened there. You can see that the expenses exceeded revenue at that point. But management responded and you raised your fees in July of 2024. And so you can see that evening back up, and you can see that yellow line over the top there. And then you can also see on the that green line down at the bottom, you actually had an operating loss last year, whereas this year you've got about $128,000 to the good due to your operations. And so those fee increases really help that. You can see that there. Okay, now we issue our audit under governmental auditing standards, and of course, what that means is we have generally accepted accounting principles and then a lot of other stuff that we've got to do. And that has to deal with your internal controls. And so we're looking at those to see whether or not they're safeguarding the assets of the city as best we can. Those are located on page 90 and 91. We have no findings for internal control, so no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses this year. Then on top of all of that, you still have an audit of your major programs, which is an audit of the federal expenditures that you have as a city. And that happens when you spend over $750,000 in expenditures. And I'm happy to report we tested the internal control and your compliance with those agreements, and we did not find any deviations in that testing. On to the next slide. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, there was an adjustment to the prior year, and that was due to GASB 101. GASB 101 is the new way that the city's required to keep up with its compensated absences. So GASB had changed this. The last time they looked at this, it was GASB 16. The way that people have paid and paid for time off has changed a lot. Things like PTO, I don't think existed at that time. So really that statement, we're seeing that cause an increase in your compensated absences compared to the prior year. And so coming up, you've got two things that are coming up. Well, one thing next year, which is GASB 102, that's certain risk disclosures that the city will be required to disclose if there's some type of event related to those risk disclosures. And then in 2026, you've got some pretty big ones coming up. GASB 103, the financial reporting model, they say it's improved. It's going to be quite an adjustment. I hope it's an improvement. It will be an adjustment. It will change the way things are presented in your proprietary funds. And there's also some prescriptive ways that they want us to handle some things in the MD&A. And so I don't think that will change very much for the city with the MD&A, but the proprietary fund, so I'll make sure to talk about that in depth when that time comes. But just want to keep you aware that these things keep coming out. GASB, they never really stop. They're always coming. And then GASB 104 has to deal with intangible assets and how to handle those. I don't see a very significant issue with the city having to implement that standard. Any questions about that part of the presentation? I'm happy to take any questions. I've got a little bit more on the letters that I got, but happy to field any questions that you have.
Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Sam, you mentioned that our 64% expenditures on public safety was pretty significantly above average. Is that something that you've been tracking year by year? Do you have that information available, or can you get that to me?
But I could get that to you.
Okay.
I don't have it on me tonight, but yes, I could let you
Just
know.
find that interesting, considering some of the things that we've been through in the last 2 or 3 years, and I'd like to compare that. Of course, I have the old reports, but.
That's right. I can give you the numbers, but I also know that there are a lot of qualitative reasons for doing things that go into those numbers. too.
Okay.
And I'm sure you'll consider those. Just a reminder, that's all.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Council, any other questions? All right, Mr. Sam, next item.
We have some small, this is our management letter, and these are small improvements, that don't reckon enough for us to put in the report, but there's still ways that we think you could strengthen your internal controls, and so I've delivered that to you in a letter. And then this other letter here, and you can see, this is what we call the audit committee letter, and so I'm required to communicate some of this to you. And so some of the significant audit matters. I talked about GASB 101. Well, you also implemented GASB 100. However, GASB 100 is a lot different in that it really just tells you how to deal with things if there are adjustments within the financial statements. So it doesn't really affect you until you actually have an adjustment to make to the prior year and how you handle certain things within what they call changes within the reporting entity. And so that can include things from changing a component unit to a major fund, or a major to non-major fund. And so don't want to bore you with all those details. It really didn't affect the city that much this year. But I did want to mention that. And then of course there's estimates within your financial statements, things like depreciable lives, allowance for doubtful accounts, and that's just in the nature of accounting. It's inherently risky that, reality doesn't always follow what we estimate. So just want to remind you of that. We had no difficulties when we were performing the audit. Any misstatements that we saw, management, that we discussed with management, were able to come to an agreement and make those adjustments. No disagreements with management, and you have provided me with a representation letter taking advantage, showing that you have taken responsibility for your financial statements. So that is the end of my presentation. If there's any questions on any of that, I'm happy to answer those.
Mr. Sam, that was pretty short and sweet, sir.
Wasn't too bad.
No, sir. Council?
I just want to make a statement and commend council, and for the public, it if you're not following government, a lot of times, the governmental accounting and budgeting and things that can be a little confusing, that this body originated this budget in the fall of '23. So you're essentially, the way that it works is 6 months after your end of fiscal year, our fiscal year is January 1 to December 31. What ends up happening is you get your report card 6 months later. There's just an audit to make sure. So in the fall of 2023, when, this body is consulting with, the departments and saying, okay, how do we, project out estimates and look at this and look at that. And then last year, I probably said enough about budget that everyone's done with it, but the importance is that there are so many unknowns relative to the world we operate in. You'll hear a little bit more tonight about some budget things that we're constantly trying to chase down, how this revenues and how these expenditures. And so I do want to commend, Sam and his team for working with us in terms of, again, providing a quality audit. I can't say enough about Lindsay and what she does, but I did want to just kind of recap again that you're getting your report card, almost a year and a half, getting close to 2 years after you kind of set forth. So again, it is commendable that in July 7th of this year, we will discuss budget amendments, because what we have to do is constantly every month look at and predict and try to think, because when we get our report card, June of next year, what we don't want to have happen is, well, we set a budget in the fall of 24 for 2025 and we just rock and roll. And that's not really the way that you're supposed to do it. So thank y'all for entertaining us constantly talking about budget and projections and unknowns and assumptions. Because what we always want to be able to do is have an unmodified opinion, have some favorable things relative to our report card, and just want to commend y'all for what y'all do. And Lindsay, obviously, she does a phenomenal job. So, thanks, Sam.
Yes, thank you very much, Brandon, I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to thank our finance, not just our finance department for the effort in this, and folks, it is an effort. But also our departments and city management and their efforts on this. This is every day looking at finances and giving information to the city council so that decisions can be made. And it's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much. Hope you have a great evening.
Yes, sir.
Next under presentations, number 2, Kimberly Horn presentation. Mr. Matt Dunagin, there you are, sir.
Give us just a second to switch over.
Motion to accept the presentation.
And turn it loose.
Mr. Matt, before I move on to you, sir. Council, given the presentation from Rushton, I'll yield the floor for a motion to accept the presentation of the audit.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the presentation and the audit report. And I think we also need to have included in the motion that we have to report this to the state. So, 2 parts of the motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed, same. Thank you, council. Ms. Kim, Mr. Matt.
So, council, you'll recall at the May 22nd meeting, we had the first presentations on our GFA projects by GMC. This is the last presentation on our 4th GFA funded project, which is the project to do improvements and rehabilitation to our water treatment plant. This project is being handled by Kimberly Horn. Matt Dunagin is our consultant with this project, and he is here this evening to talk a little bit about what the scope is, timing of this project, and then budgetary things.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. Residents of Jasper. As Kim said, Matt Dunagin, Kimberly Horn. Overview of kind of the Jasper water treatment plant. So the water treatment plant was originally constructed in 1956, and then was expanded in the mid-1980s, and then was also expanded again in the 2007 to 2008 period. So total production of the plant is 2.33 million gallons per day. The source water for the plant is from Long Swamp Creek and then some additional ground wells. It is a conventional surface water treatment plant. So it's coagulation, flocculation, sedimentation, filtration, disinfection. Happy to dive into that technical if someone really wants it, but very standard treatment plant for surface water here in the state of Georgia. So the purpose of this project is basically the Georgia Environmental Protection Division, which is Georgia EPD, periodically, every 5 years or so, audits every plant in the state of Georgia, water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plants. And basically they're just doing a compliance check to say, hey, these are the new regulations that have changed. We're coming to look at your plant to make sure it's operating correctly, make sure things are still in good working condition, and then to let you know about any things that have changed in the regulations. And so Georgia EPD came and did their what's called a sanitary sewer survey, even though it's for a water treatment plant, it's still called the sanitary sewer survey. But they came and did their inspection of Jasper's water treatment plant, and there were no major violations, no major issues, and nothing alarming that says, hey, address this right now, we gotta shut down the plant. Everything was moderate to minor issues with just the condition of some of the infrastructure in the plant. So aging valves, aging filter media, some cracks in some of the concrete and things like that. So the city went out and was able to acquire a loan with GFO, the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, to improve these issues with the plant. So those are filter upgrades. So we'll be putting in new underdrains in the filters, new filter media above those, and some concrete repairs in those filter basins. We're also going to be adding air scour to the backwash system, so when we clean that filter media and we clean the filtration cycle of the water plant, it will also use air, which will allow us to save on the water. So instead of more water going out, being used to clean and being wasted, we'll be able to save more water by adding air to that process. Additionally, the modernized controls, so we'll be putting in new valves. Some of those valves will be electronically able to open and close. There'll be some additional meters that are required by EPD that need to be added. And then those new filter under drains will have control panels that allow them to operate more efficiently. Additionally, there was some site security things that are now mandatory by EPD, just due to kind of rolling down from Homeland Security type things with site security gate, vehicular gates, and site lighting. So what does that mean for y'all? So new filter under drains, filter media, that's just going to ensure that your water quality continues to be the best. And it's already of a high quality, so it'll just continue to be of a high quality, and it will be able to stay consistent for the years to come. Operating costs, so newer filters operate with more efficiency. The replacement of leaking valves and more modernized instrumentation will just help with energy usage at the plant and will help with saving more water. If you're not cleaning, if you're able to save more water, not clean more water, then you're saving more money. So that plant efficiency is what we're really trying to get to make the most sense of the electricity and the water being cleaned there at the plant. So as I said, that was funded through GFA, which is the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. Total cost estimate for the project was $1.8 million. The project timeline is we are on pace to finish design in the July-August time period. And then just due to the water demands over the summer, everyone uses more water. We're looking to start construction in November of 2025 as we ramp down into the lower water usage months. And then we should be able to have that finished towards the end of summer next year, 2026. With the heavier water shutdowns happening during those winter months and not in the summer months. So the summer will be more finishing off some of the finer things. And so yeah, next steps will be finalizing design. We'll go back to Georgia EPD, let them know what we're planning to fix, how we're planning to fix it, make sure we have their blessing, and then we'll go to the public competitive bid process to obtain the best possible bid, the best possible contractor to complete the project. if you have any questions.
Council? Staff?
So just to reiterate again, we've kind of been on the journey of communicating to the elected body of the investments that we're making into our water sewer. Kim can speak on it way more intelligently, but as a synopsis, this was that original plan of identified about $24 million worth of projects that we needed to do for water sewer, underwriting through GFA, et cetera, said, well, we recognize you need this much, but we'll be able to give you $8 million to pay back. So this is part of that $8 million. What you heard at the work session was a portion of that $8 million. So again, that is a huge step towards us continuing to move forward with doing these projects. But I use the analogy Mr. Faust has used before, that if you don't change the oil in your car for a while, you can see that, built in the 1950s, and really and truly there's been some expansions, but there's really been no modification and enhancement. This does not increase the plant size in terms of capacity. This is merely we just got to update and bring it forward a little more. So the $2 million, just say, is money well spent. But again, I just want to set the expectation that it's not an enhancement of the plant. Obviously, as we continue to move forward and identify sources of water, there may be the need one day of doing that, but this is just a huge step forward. So, thanks, Matt.
Mr. Matt, thank you, sir. Ms. Kim, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't, but thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Next item on the agenda, public comments. It's the start of the meeting at 6 p.m. Madam City Clerk, can anyone sign up? All right. Council, next item on the agenda is your consent agenda. Yield the floor for a motion.
A motion to approve consent agenda.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda are public hearings. So I will open the public hearings. Public hearings, item number 1, JC Family Market Variance Request. Mary Burgess, what is that?
Hello. Good evening, council. We do have the applicant in attendance tonight. Did you want me to go first, or would you?
No, ma'am. If the applicant is present, if they'd like to come forward and speak on behalf of their request.
Mr. Green?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
Wherever you'd like.
Have any presentations? Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for having me and being able to state our case here. I'd like to just hand you 2 pieces of paper if I can, if it's okay, pass around. And what those, I'm going to tell you what they are, then I'll tell you where it all began. It's about the sign over at JC's Market. There's one with a picture of the new sign and one of the old sign, and then where that sign would have taken place on the building and how big it was. The way this all came about, the owner of the business, who I'm representing, not JC's Market, but of the whole complex, was trying to help the tenant out and went ahead and got a sign put up. Looked great, however, we didn't follow the proper things. And JC was not aware of it, the fish market or the meat market was not aware of it at the time until it was put up. And Mr. Latimer went to them and said, hey, this can't be done. And we go, we didn't do it. And they came to us and said to me, I said, I wasn't aware of it either. I represent the company here, but the owner took it upon himself to try to help a client, a customer out. And so that's where we're at. And the sign is 8 square feet out of compliance with the city's ordinance. And it was all done based on, trying to help somebody else out. But you can see from the picture how the previous sign that we removed was quite a bit bigger. And I don't think it, appeared as well as what we've got up there now. And we realized since we didn't have a permit, we'll pay the fine on that too, as far as you know, and get this approved. And that's, in short, what's happened, and we're just trying to take care of the matter and do it the right way now.
Just for clarification, sir, I'm gonna ask you one question. You represent the business that's in that facility or the overall complex?
Overall complex,
Okay,
the Underpin Mackey.
okay, thank you, sir.
Yes,
Anything further?
no, thank you.
All right, staff, I'm gonna turn it over to you this time.
Great evening, Mayor and Council. So our first item is this variance request for the existing sign for JC's Family Market. As Mr. Brandon stated, the applicant is requesting to increase the allowed sign area for this tenant space from 24.1 square feet to 32 square feet for the signage on the front facade. So as far as the site context goes, I'm sure you're familiar with the site. It's right across the street. It's about 4.2 acres in size. It is zoned C2 general commercial. It has frontage on Burnt Mountain Road, Pioneer Road, and Court Streets. And the existing tenants within the center include not only JC's, but also Cherokee Closeout, Family Dollar, and Northside Curiosity. So a bit more of the site context from the ground. To the north across Church Street is the overflow Court Street is the overflow court parking. To the east of JC's is Cherokee Closeout. To the south across the railroad tracks is Walgreens, and to the west across the railroad tracks is the newly redeveloped Hensley Plaza. So the applicant is essentially requesting a retroactive variance to increase the allowed sign area from 24.1 square feet to 32 square feet to allow for the existing sign that, as Mr. Brandon noted, was installed without a permit. Our sign ordinance for multi-tenant centers like this affords each tenant 1 square foot of signage per linear foot of the facade upon which the sign will be applied. And the tenant, in addition to the sign that's on their suite, they also have a sign that is on the Cherokee Closeout monument sign. And I do want to highlight this. They did get a permit for the monument sign panel that they installed. But just to give you a little bit of context, so that sign that they have up against Burnt Mountain Road is legal non-conforming. It is way oversized, much bigger than anything that our current ordinance would afford them. So this sign, for all intents and purposes, really serves as their visibility. You know, Burnt Mountain is the most traveled street adjacent to this property, and so this affords them a lot of additional visibility that they would not have if they were on any other parcel in this area. So as I'm sure you're familiar with our sign ordinance, we have different criteria that constitute granting a variance. They're defined as essentially hardship situations. So the first hardship situation is where proximity of existing signs on adjoining lots causes the property to be ineligible due to spacing requirements for the type of sign sought. This hardship is not met as there are no spacing requirements for wall signs. The second criteria is where such conditions are not the result of any actions of the property owner. This is also not met as the property owner did install this sign without obtaining a permit. The third hardship situation is where variances are limited to the minimum relief necessary to overcome the hardship. Here again, staff believes this is not met as the tenant is afforded that 50 square foot panel on the existing legal non-conforming sign. And again, there are no spacing requirements for wall signs. And then the fourth criteria, which is kind of like a sub-criteria, is that a variance shall not be granted to allow for a greater number of signs than would be allowed if the hardship did not exist. This is technically met as this will only increase the sign area and not allow for an additional sign. So with that, staff recommends denial due to failure to comply with the hardship criteria outlined in our sign ordinance. However, should the council find merit in this application, the planning commission did recommend approval, subject to the condition that the total sign area for the front facade shall not exceed 32 square feet that currently exists. So with that, I would be happy to answer your questions.
Council, any questions for staff?
I have some.
Yes, sir.
So the monument sign, what was the, I don't understand why it's legal non-conforming if they got a permit, so, and it's a relatively new business that I believe has been here since our ordinances were changed, so.
Yes, so our sign ordinance does allow for limited changes to existing legal non-conforming signs. And since this was merely a tenant panel replacement, they are allowed to do that under our sign ordinance.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And the current sign is larger than what we allow,
Yes.
and all we have asked them to do is to change it to the proper size.
Yes, so had they gotten a permit for it, we would have identified that the proposed sign was oversized during that staff review.
Anything further?
You go to the next slide for me, I'm sorry, it's just, one more. The 32 square feet, that's for the sign on the actual building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The tenant panel that they placed on the monument sign, the 50 square foot, that was approved by the city.
Council, any further questions for staff? Is there anyone here in the public that would like to speak on this item before us? Going once, going twice. If not, under the public hearings, we will move on to number 2. Cradle Incorporated variance request. As the applicant here. The applicant will come forward if you'd like to and speak on behalf of this item.
So, I'm Brian Mabry with Cradle, this is my wife Jennifer, she's also with Cradle. I'd just like to take a brief moment real quick just to kind of introduce Cradle and inform everyone who Cradle is and what we do, and hopefully show why it's important to show Cradle support as a local business. So Cradle Inc. is the premier manufacturer of the highest quality, most resilient, and complete lining systems for sanitary sewer manholes, both new and existing. Inside the wastewater collection system, it's an extremely harsh environment. Wastewater produces chemicals and gases which degrade these conveyance structures. When this degradation occurs, we can see problems ranging from continual seepage of raw sewage underground to overloading our system's capacities, and even complete structure failures resulting in the structure and surrounding earth caving in. When the degradation is caught in time, rehabilitation of the structure can occur. In any case, our environment is often dramatically impacted negatively, and our financial burdens are dramatically increased as well. So back to what Cradle does, and as mentioned at first, Cradle manufactures liners for wastewater structures which protect against these adverse outcomes and protect the structures for decades to come. Whether we're manufacturing a liner for a new structure or an existing structure, not only are we protecting the environment and reducing financial burdens to every person in the community whose officials had the foresight to utilize our system, we're creating opportunities for employment with livable wages and career growth opportunities right here within this community. I know our small town has 3 grocery stores now and a growing list of restaurants, but I believe we have many citizens that would appreciate the opportunities to utilize and enhance their skill sets, considering it's currently graduation season. Also that there's many citizens that would appreciate great opportunities for their children to develop meaningful careers locally. I believe there has been some concern over how life will change for those most affected by Cradle purchasing and building our home for our North American operations on the Jeanette Drive property. Those people being the people that live straight across the street from the proposed building site. So please consider that the decision regarding our variance request does not change the fact that this property is zoned industrial parcel, is an industrial zone parcel and can be developed for industrial use. However, if our request for relief is granted, you're making a major difference in Cradle's ability to thrive in this community, and because of Cradle's cleanliness, overall quietness, hours of operation, size of workforce, and general desire to be a good neighbor, you're providing support for what could very well be the best case scenario for those neighbors. Your support also shows to the members of our community that you care about providing them with the best opportunities while protecting the quality of life they deserve and simultaneously improving conditions throughout North America. And with that, I'll leave it to Jennifer to kind of hit on a few key points.
Just a few key points. The primary purpose of our variance request is because we're looking to have the pre-engineered metal building skin exposed on some points. We're looking to reduce the amount of brick we're required to have on some parts of the building that are facing public roadways. And I just kind of want to go through why I feel like our variance request should be considered and how we're trying to be mindful of what the nature of these ordinances are. So as far as a hardship being created, I do feel like there is a hardship that's been created simply because we are an industrial operation, but we're having commercial standards applied to us. And that's a challenge because an industrial operation is often far different from commercial. From a smaller amount of foot traffic in industrial, needing to be able to accommodate larger, bigger equipment, needing to be able to utilize an open space floor plan within our building. As far as the aesthetics go, we too want an aesthetically pleasing, not just building or two buildings, but also the property itself. That's important, but we also need it to be functional. One of the things that I wanted to make a point of, so I think that we have one building in particular that's of concern. So our building that you're gonna see the most of will be seen off of just a very limited employee entrance that's off of Jeanette. That part of the building you see, no, we're not asking for a variance. We're doing all the brick, all the fenestration as required. But we have a 125-foot long section of the building that does run parallel to Jeanette. And it's that side as well as the southeast end of that building that we're really seeking the variance for. As it stands, there's a berm and there's trees. The ordinances require that we put up a bigger berm, a different berm, so we're putting that up. We're putting up additional trees. The ordinance gives us the option berm or fence, and currently our plans propose we do a berm, a fence, and trees. Doing our best to provide the best sort of screen we can as a buffer between our facility and the neighbors. On the southeast end, our plan was, currently we have some trees planned to go there to also provide a bit of a screen, because I think when you're at that intersection of Hood and Jeanette, it is visible. We've talked about being willing to do more trees, more screening there to block that more. But I guess simply put, without the variance going through, we can't afford to do the above and beyond screening and to the buffer zone that we were planning to do. Right now, we're definitely doing more than is required because we want to be a good neighbor, we want it to look nice, we want it to be an asset to the community. But if we do have to do the brick to these parts of the building that are pretty much going to be obscured, all but about maybe 6 feet of the top of the building, then we have to look at scaling back on how extensive we go with that buffer. And when we talk about 6 feet being visible, that's right now is premature trees. You know, the plan is putting in evergreens as opposed to things that are going to lose their leaves for half of the year, but having a nice screen there. So that's.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for the applicant? All right, turn it over to staff.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
No, after staff.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so our next item is a set of variance requests for.
And actually, Ms. Elliott, if I may stop you, just for the record, and it's not for the applicant to speak on, for the record, the property directly across the street from this, the residence is mine. I did speak with you one day as a resident, and so I want to make sure that that's on the record. As a resident, I spoke to these individuals on site about the relief that they are seeking and guided them towards staff. So with that, I'll turn it over to staff.
All right, so Cradle is here seeking 4 variances from the city's building design regulations for their new custom-built facility at 453 Hood Road. The first variance is to increase the allowed metal on publicly visible exterior building facades, so those facing Jeanette Drive and a portion of one facing Hood Road, from 10% to 80%. The second request is to utilize prohibited stock pre-engineered metal building skins. The third request is to reduce the required fenestration on publicly visible exterior building facades from 35% to 6%. And the fourth request is to eliminate the requirement to provide fenestration or entryways every 20 linear feet along the southeast building facade. And all of these requests will make more sense once you can see the elevations. So as far as the site overview goes, the subject property is about 7.74 acres. It is zoned M1 general industry, which does allow for the proposed office, manufacturing, and storage facility uses by right, so without any zoning entitlements. And the property has frontages on both Jeanette Drive and then there at the corner on Hood Road. So a bit more of the site context from the ground. To the north, we have M1 light industrial uses as part of the Don Westbrook area. To the east, across Jeanette Drive, we have R1 single-family residences. To the south, we have the Shoe Plant Industrial Park, which is zoned M1. And then to the immediate west, we have the Standridge Color Corporation Manufacturing Facility, which is also zoned M1 General Industry. So again, Cradle is requesting variances for relief from some of our building design regulations. These regulations were adopted pretty intentionally in 2023 to sort of improve the aesthetic quality of the city. So that first request would be to increase the allowed metal on the publicly visible facades from 10% to 80%. The second request is to utilize the stock metal skins. The third request is to reduce the required fenestration, which, as a reminder, fenestration is basically providing windows or doors to kind of break up the mass of the building facade. And then the last request is a variance to eliminate the requirement for fenestration every 20 linear feet on the southeast building facade, which, as you can kind of see, is on the left side of this image. The reason that Cradle is requesting that specific to the southeast building facade is that they do intend to do an expansion at some point in the future. And so, at that time when they do expand, that would be expected to comply with the fenestration requirement. So I can't speak about these requests without talking about the zoning context of the property. So the zoning context in this area is a little bit unusual, where you have the juxtaposition between the M1, which is our most intense zoning district, and the RA, which is our least intense residential zoning district. And because of this contrast, the city's ordinance does have safeguards in place, like the land use buffers, which Cradle is required to help provide a visual and physical buffer in between this development and the residences. So you can kind of have a better appreciation of what that looks like. Because the zoning contrast is so stark between the M1 and the R1, they're required to provide what we refer to as buffer type B, which provides a 30-foot physical separation, and then they will be doing a 6-foot berm with an 8-foot fence on top of it, and then they will have layered tree plantings in front of the berm and fence. I think at planting, the trees will be about 6 feet tall, in addition to the trees that are already there. So this is what the elevations would look like if there was no land use buffer. So you can see the bottom right elevation is the office elevation. As Ms. Mabry indicated, this will be the most publicly visible elevation because this will sort of line up with their driveway on Jeanette Drive. On the bottom left, you have this is the production building, and this will span about 125 feet parallel to Jeanette Drive. And then there on the top, you have the very plain elevation for the southeast building facade. But again, some of this plainness is attributed to the fact that Cradle does intend to expand this facility in the future. So this is what the elevations will look like with the proposed land use buffer. So as you can see, the fence, berm, and trees will provide a pretty meaningful visual screen. I do want to note that this buffer is not something that will be required if you're going between commercial and commercial. So this does kind of give them a unique context. And you'll only be able to see about 6 feet of the actual pre-engineered metal building skin. And then as I talked about earlier, there on the right, that office component will essentially be fully bricked, except for the recessed kind of wings there on the sides. But that facade itself will comply with all of our fenestration and veneer requirements. So these are some more kind of real world renderings that give you different context of what this will look like when it's actually built. Again, as you can see, the office area will be kind of exposed, where the long portion of the production facility will be screened by the land use buffer. And then here's another perspective sort of looking northwest from Jeanette Drive, where you can see what the facade what the southeast building facade would look like. I'll get into this a little bit more under the Planning Commission recommendation, but the applicant is agreeable to extending the land use buffer to wrap that southeast building facade. so that that will be better screened by the buffer as well, while we're in this interim condition. And then if they do expand in the future, they have agreed that that facade, upon expansion, would comply with the fenestration and veneer requirements. So the zoning variance criteria are a little bit different than the sign variance criteria that we've been seeing more of lately, so I'll go ahead and go through these as well. The first criteria is that exceptional conditions pertain to the property in question because of its size, shape, or topography. Staff believes that this is not met as the property is approximately 7 acres, it's flat, it's shovel-ready for development. The second condition is that the application of the ordinance to the property would result in unnecessary hardship. Here again, staff believes this is not met as the applicant could veneer and fenestrate the publicly visible facades to comply with the city's regulations. The third criteria is that such exceptional conditions are peculiar to the property involved. This is not met, as I mentioned, all new commercial and industrial development within the city are subject to our building design regulations. But I do think it is worth mentioning that Cradle is one of the first, if not the first, industrial developments to come in since those regulations were adopted. The fourth criteria is that the exceptional conditions are not the result of the property owner. This is not met as the applicant is choosing to utilize the stock skins without the required amount of veneer or fenestration. And then the fifth criteria is that relief, if granted, will not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purpose or intent of our zoning ordinance. Staff believes this is not met as approval of the variances would challenge the intent of the city's building design regulations, which are intended to apply to all new commercial and industrial development with the goal of sort of enhancing the overall aesthetic quality of the city. So with that, staff recommends denial of the variance request due to failure to satisfy our established criteria. However, should the council find merit in their request, the planning commission did recommend approval of 2 of the 4 variances. So they had a kind of split vote across the request. The request to increase the metal percentage, they did recommend approval, I believe that was 3-1. The request to utilize the stock metal building skins moved forward with no recommendation as there was a tie vote. The request to reduce the amount of required fenestration from 35% to 6% also moved forward with no recommendation as there was a tie vote. And then the request to eliminate the fenestration requirement across every 20 linear feet on the southeast building facade moved forward with an approval recommendation of 3-1. But again, should the council find merit in the request, staff recommends conditions essentially kind of memorializing the limitations of the request. So the metal cannot exceed 80% of the visible area. A minimum 6% fenestration would be required across all publicly visible building facades. Upon future expansion, we memorialize that the southeast facade would comply with the applicable fenestration requirements. And then, as agreed upon by the applicant at Planning Commission, that the proposed land use buffer along Jeanette Drive would be extended to wrap around and screen the southeast building facade. And so that is all I have, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, any questions for staff on this item?
No, but I do have one for the, people asking for the permit. Is that all right to ask?
Sure, absolutely.
The access from Jeanette Drive, I hear the intent is that's for office only.
That is for office employees only. We'll have signs up that any big trucks should use the entrance off of Hood Road. That
It's
we're
the
gonna
should use that I got a
Well,
concern with.
So one, in our plans, I think we made it clear in our plans, that is in fact for employee use only. We have a very limited number of trucks that come to us. We don't have 5 trucks a day. And the trucks we do get are often repeat. So it's easy enough for us to make it clear, hey, this is the way you go. It's something that we're strongly going to enforce. It's part of the plans. We agreed on it because otherwise there would have been traffic studies and possible trying to add in, and it's easy enough. There's a stop sign. Have everybody go to the stop sign. We're having to upgrade that little dirt road anyhow, so it'll be nice for all of you know, the truck traffic between us and Stanbridge, the people behind us. So that's something that, I mean, I can't guarantee somebody's not gonna try to do that, but I can guarantee you between the two of us,
They're gonna hear your full and it won't happen again.
Yeah.
From the same person.
Thank you.
And I just had a quick question. What hours? Is it typical 8 to 5 type deal, or is it 24 hours?
7 to 3:30. Monday through Friday.
occasionally people might be there working on the weekend, or someone might stay until 6, but, you know, you could come by our place anytime. We keep saying it and it's hard to believe, but it's such a quiet operation. You know, we use a lot of advanced robotics. We weld plastic, which is just hot air. It's just not a loud thing. You know, our forklift is battery electric, sorry, so it's just, we're just not noisy. But yeah, we do have normal hours, 1 shift, that's it.
Mayor, could I ask a question of staff? So in the event, and I respect the fact that, you know, local business support, et cetera, but I think one of the things I oftentimes in 20 years of looking at this is things change, things may or may not. With this being our most, you know, intensive land use, is there any way that in the future, I see that apron seems to be pretty significant in terms of off the residential road. If this business were to be another business one day, logistically, would there still be able to get truck traffic on that curb cut? I appreciate y'all monitoring policing, but you know, it may not always be. You may need a bigger expansion one day. So if you've still got that opportunity, because it looks pretty wide going around the building, and so I'm just curious what the dimensions are.
So the maximum curb cut that you can have, not at the radius, at the actual throat is 30 feet, and it is 30 feet. One of the things, and it's 24 feet to around the building, and that's also part of fire code, that they can get around the building. I know that they have other fire things, but we always make sure that is met as well. The other thing that we discussed heavily was commingling public and truck traffic. So whereas they have people coming, they'll have their office people and anybody who's coming to the office, their clientele and stuff, will be coming to that area. We really don't want to see them come off of the Hood Road, because then they'll be commingling in that rear parking lot where all the loading docks are and all the bays are. So although I appreciate the fact of future, this has been memorialized on their plan. So we have that. We have the conditions of approval that we did in for all of the different for fire, utilities, all of those memorialized. So there will be a sign too that says no truck traffic, no truck through traffic. I can't remember the wording on it, but there'll be a sign there as well.
But I just want to make sure there could be.
Do you mind if I say something on that? So, with speaking of future possibilities, somebody could very well come in and pay for the traffic studies and have every right to use that as a truck entrance. Any favor that you could show us kind of helps us stay in that position to control it.
One question. You said Pradle's your North American, this is gonna be your North American?
Yes.
Yes.
Where else do you have,
Throughout Europe. So our flagship is out of Germany. They started up in Germany around 1990 and then moved into Austria. We now have franchise partners in Poland and the UK, and really it's all throughout Europe at this point.
New one just in Australia.
Yeah, a new franchise partner in Australia. We have franchise partners currently, franchise partners of Cradle Inc. Here in the United States. We have one in Nevada, another one in Utah, and then up in Canada as well. So our liner systems, even though this is our first, I guess, brick and mortar in the US, our liners have been used in the United States since the 1990s.
If I could just mention one more thing that I forgot to earlier is that, you know, I did a little bit of research on Jasper's website, also on the zoning, and from what I could see, our property is one of 3 industrial properties left that have not been developed. And out of one of those 3, one of them has a house on it. So that's why I'm considering it. It's one that could be developed into industrial property. So out of all of the other industrial properties that have basically no facade except a metal building, we're already to a higher standard than everybody else around us, and possibly 2 more to follow.
Any further questions, council? At this time, I'll ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item. Going once, going twice. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearings. We will move on to new business. New business item number 1, Ms. Golder, consideration of special event request application from JMA for the Christmas parade.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. So, fun fact, in 6 months, Thanksgiving will be over, and we will be headed straight on into Christmas. So while it is very hard to believe how quickly this year has gone by, it is never too early to start planning for the holidays. The Jasper Merchants Association returns this December with their annual Night of Lights Christmas Parade along Main Street. This is scheduled for Sunday, December the 7th. And we have multiple folks from Jasper Merchants Association here with us this evening. Haley and Jeff, it looks like, have been designated the official speakers regarding Night of Lights. And so I'll give them an opportunity if there's anything that they want to share about the event or anything that they're planning on doing.
Good evening to some of my favorite people.
And you're our favorite mayor as well, so thank you for having us. We look forward to this every year. Little sarcasm there. I really don't have a whole lot to add to what we've done the last 13 years. This thing pretty much runs itself by now. The same 3 people, plus we've added 1 more last year that made life a little easier for Krista. December 7th is a Sunday, which had been requested before to move it from Saturday to Sunday before the Georgia Bulldogs, so we are very happy to do that.
Go Dogs.
More sergeant.
So now I miss out on my NFL games, so you guys can watch the Dogs. But I will do anything for Mr. Kirk. So other than that, nothing really has changed. I've kind of been speaking to the owner of the distillery about maybe bringing a chili cook-off on that day, see if we can get some more things going downtown. He's saying no, but I'm gonna keep working on him. So I'll see what I can come up with, maybe get somebody else to partner with us. So we're just kind of looking at things just to bring a little bit more downtown. We still would like the noon closing of the street. I think that is what we did, right?
Yes.
Everything starts at 3 o'clock with the same things we have, the choruses, and just whatever else we can come up with. It's really hard, as you all know, to get volunteers and anybody to help, so what happens on that day happens with the 2 of us and 2 more people. So we worked very hard on this. Our first meeting was the night of the parade. After it was over, this is what we don't want to do, this is what we want to do. So this is something that goes on every day of the year. For those people that think we just, show up on Friday afternoon and say, okay, let's do this, this, and this, and we're done on Sunday. That doesn't work. So we worked very hard on this, as you know, Mr. Mayor, because you were part of this for many years. So other than that, unless you have questions for me, things really are no different this year.
Do you have a theme yet?
We do have a theme. Your favorite Christmas movie is what we're going to do. See if we can expand it a little bit. So that's what we're going to do. Do we have anything different?
We acknowledge the city changed the ordinances, so we will no longer have any animals as part of the parade.
Yes, the horses are going away.
We won't have any
So
cleanup problems.
if I can kind of jump in on that's not an ordinance, that is an operational change, is to not have livestock in parades, and that is for safety purposes mainly, but also for cleanup. But honestly, it is safety purposes. You get a lot of people in a very confined space, and although the horses and the other livestock that tend to attend are very well behaved, that is something that is not within our control, and we do not want to see something happen that could be just a tragedy at a fun event. This is supposed to be a fun family event, and so we have made that change this year. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is JMA is a nonprofit organization. They do run a very bare bones skeleton type organization. It is all hands on deck and then some for them. To get parade insurance for the event would be cost prohibitive for them. And so, like some of the other events that we have tried to work with folks and organizations on being able to still have the event, but also providing a level of protection for both the organization and for the city. We are working on their parade application, on some language that can go in there that might provide that level of protection or that waiver of liability that can make everybody feel good about, going ahead and continuing with that. So I have their previous application. We're looking at the language. Mr. Siphon has provided some suggestions for things that he would like to see in there. And once I get past a few things, I'll be able to work on that a little bit more.
And that'll help the cost.
That will help the cost. I mean, as you know, we make no money, nobody, we want to keep it to where we have, this is the largest parade in town, and the reason that we are able to do that is because our vendors on the streets are $20. And then the the float costs, I lied. The vendors on the streets are $75 and the float costs are $20. We want to keep it that way. We had over 60 last year. And we know that this is the best parade in the town but if it comes to insurance, there's nothing that we will be able to do about that because it is so expensive and there is no money left at the end of the day when we're done.
We'll help you with that part, Mr. Siphon and Ms. Goldberg, on the application.
And whatever we need to do, we're happy to do that as well.
Just bear with me a little bit because I've had some other things that I've been working on, but we'll get back onto that. And so what we ask this evening is for approval of their event application pending language that Mr. Siphon can agree to live with for everyone's protection this evening.
Council, any questions?
I just have one other comment.
Yes, ma'am.
When are they starting the new road construction coming through? Do we know that yet?
Ms. Kim?
We do not.
Okay, so
That's definitely gonna throw a monkey wrench into parade routes in the future.
Okay.
But I don't, definitely this year we're good. And maybe next year we're good. I think it'll be years after that though that we may need to sit down and come up with another creative parade route that's not going to affect, because it's going to be difficult to close.
Well, this one is working out well. We weren't for sure about the first year, but I think we got it.
Yeah.
With the perfect police presence, we do well, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Council, you on the floor for a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the event application for the Christmas parade.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same? Thank you.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to this parade.
So really,
Thanks, y'all.
thank you, council.
New business item number 2, consideration of variance from the city of Jasper sign ordinance. Zoe, you're back.
Right, yes, so the first one that we have before you for a vote is the sign variance request for Jason's Family Market located at 55 Burnt Mountain Road for a variance to increase the allowed building sign area for the front facade from 24.1 square feet to 32 square feet. As we discussed, staff is recommending denial, however, the planning commission did recommend approval, subject to the condition that the existing sign shall not exceed 32 square feet.
Thank you, ma'am. Council, you on the floor for a motion on this item.
Make a motion to approve signage and with one condition that it shall not exceed 32 square feet.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second, any discussion, council?
Let me ask my famous question.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand the condition and accept it?
Yes, it did not exceed the 32 square feet.
Yes, sir. You accept it?
Thanks, sir. Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Aye.
Council, Madam Clerk, show for the record, 1 against. Item number 3, consideration of variance request from Brundige. You're right.
This is for variance request from our building design regulations for the cradle facility at 453 Hood Road. Each variance will need to be voted upon separately, and as a reminder, the first variance is to increase the allowed metal on their publicly visible exterior building facades from 10% to 80%. The planning commission recommended approval of this at under a 3-to-1 vote. The second request is a variance to utilize prohibited stock pre-engineered metal building skins. The planning commission did not move forward with a recommendation on this as there was a tie vote. The third request is a variance to reduce the required fenestration on the publicly visible exterior building facades from 35% to 6%. This request also did not move forward with the recommendation due to a tie vote. And then the fourth and final request is a variance to eliminate the requirement to provide fenestration or entryways every 20 linear feet along the southeast building facade, and the planning commission recommended approval of this request 3-to-1. Should you find merit in the application, we suggest 4 conditions. The first, to memorialize the metal percentage increase. The second, to memorialize the facade percentage reduction. And then the third was to require that the southeast building facade provide fenestration if the building is expanded. And then the fourth, recommended by the planning commission, was that a land use buffer shall be extended to wrap the southeast building facade.
Thank you, ma'am. Before I go further, Mr. Seifel, would you like 4 motions, 1 per variance, or would you prefer 1 motion to cover all?
I think staff is recommending that you vote separately on each variance, so I would recommend staff recommendation.
Sir. The 4 conditions that you mentioned at the staff level, which variances do those apply to? 1, 2, 3, 4, or all?
All.
Council, you've heard from staff of the 4 conditions. It is oftentimes that you impose other conditions that the applicant can accept. An example of that would be no access off of a residential roadway or Jeanette Drive. I'm going to yield the floor for a motion on the first variance request.
Make a motion to approve, motion request with conditions being met.
Which conditions?
The 80% of public facades not to exceed 80% in public visible area, minimum 6% fenestration required across publicly visible building facades, and upon future expansion in southeast building shall comply with applicable fenestration requirements, and then adding a buffer along Jeanette Drive entirely the southeast building facade.
I have a motion. Do I have a second, council?
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. The motion is for approval with the 4 conditions as staff mentioned. Any discussion, council?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just do one.
No, just
Okay, just making sure.
Just the first. Just checking.
First of all, I want people to understand my votes have nothing to do whether I support a business or I do not. But I would like to remind council of the effort that we took forth in this ordinance, which was a year's worth of time, using one of the most reputed engineering firms in the southeast to come up with best practices. And our metal building policies were strict because we wanted them strict. And this is the very specific type of location that we wanted to protect. This area has come before us once before with a changing in zoning from an adjacent property which was denied. And for that reason, I would like to support our ordinances, which are laws that were at the time unanimously approved by this council. Again, I appreciate Pradle wanting to be here. I appreciate them and what they plan on doing here. But at the same time, this is a corporation that should have done some investigation on the construction costs and other things. I'm just defending the good work that this council did several years ago.
And I want to add on to that. Unfortunately, you got to start somewhere. We, keep saying it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. We'll never do our ordinance. So it's just a waste of time.
Any further discussion, council? Have a motion to second with the 4 conditions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same?
No.
Thank you, council. Moving on to the second variance request. Second one is for variance to utilize prohibited stock pre-engineered metal building skins. Council, yield the floor for a motion. Motions can be to approve, deny, and/or table.
I'll make the motion to deny.
Have a motion for denial, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, council? All in favor for denial?
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Item number 3, variance to reduce the required fenestration. That is on the third item. Yield the floor for a motion.
We on three.
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion to deny that one.
Motion for denial, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion to second, any discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Fourth item, variance to eliminate the requirement to provide fenestration on entryways every 20 linear feet. The fourth item, yield the floor for a motion. Motion can be for approval, denial, and/or table. Yield the floor for a motion.
Motion to deny.
I have a motion for denial, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to second, any discussion, council? All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Moving on, item number 4, discussion of request for street acceptance at Piedmont Village. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. You may recall our conversation at the work session back, feels like it's been longer ago, but it was just a week and a half or so ago. But nonetheless, around the late summer, early fall of 2019, there was a development that was ongoing behind the hospital, Piedmont Townhomes. At the time, the city had considered accepting the streets into our public roadways. However, they had not yet completed the work. I guess the beginning of May, I had received an email from Mr. Neil Hughes asking if we could formalize that acceptance of the roadway. Even though it was on your agenda in 2019, I acquiesced and said that we would kind of go do a site visit. We would point out any sort of deficiencies. I do believe that Emmy and Josh have done a site visit. I haven't consulted with them, however, if it's the pleasure of council to accept this, if you want to hear the conditions, I was negligent in getting you an itemized list. Unfortunately, just the voluminous amount of stuff we were kind of putting for you, I did not. I don't want to put Emmy on the spot unless she's ready. You can come on out if you're ready. I know you're ready. And part of what I communicated to Mr. Hughes was that in light of the fact that we're talking 5+ years of history and there has been a preliminary acceptance, I do not want to disregard that, but I also wanted to make sure that you all are aware of some of these deficiencies, that if we do move forward in good faith and say, hey, let's accept it with the condition that they make some of these changes. Amy, if you want to go ahead and kind of tell us what we got.
Thank you, Brandon. So Josh and I went out on probably the hottest day thus far. So, and everybody came out and greeted us, and then especially a guy with a nice cold beer, but he did offer at least, but so we did go, we popped all the storm structures. There's one storm structure that needs to be completely replaced. The whole bottom has been broken out. There are a few items that we would need to discuss for legal matters. Everybody has put their fences over the stormwater and utility easement in the rear of their properties, and in some cases on the front of their properties. One additional item is that the pipe for the detention basin, so what is that, Lee? No. White. So the side of the road's here, the pipe, 42-inch pipe goes over 400 linear feet this way, and then there's a detention outlet here. So all of this land here and all of this land here would be developable, but we would need deeded access to that easement in order to take over that storm. However, because the grass was taller than Josh and we haven't had a chance to take 4x4 out there and do some weed whacking, we have not assessed the actual detention basin as of yet. So regular cleaning would have to happen. We'd have to do something for those utility easements being cleared if we ever had to go back there, or some sort of stipulation that we can provide to, I'm not sure, whomever, the landowners, or there are, they have some pedestal storm structures in the middle of people's backyards. So there's just a couple of things that were awkwardly placed that may infringe upon being able to maintain the actual system. We have not done any water or sewer assessments out there either. So that might be something that we want to look into, either having them CCTV the lines to make sure we don't have anything, because we take the roads, we take everything in it. So the top coat didn't look bad, no alligator, no cracking, and there was no flares that were broken. I think that it was, for the age of it, was in decent shape, except for some of the other obstacles that have grown, which you know how fences grow in the backyard, so they have to go over some easements. So that's where we stand right now.
And so admittingly, what I committed to Mr. Hughes was that we would put this forward on our June 2nd meeting, because I do think that there had been, I guess, a lot of interest from the residents in terms of some anxiety with regards to, is this going to be turned over to them as a future liability for their group. I do think that I wanted to disclose that there had been a commitment prior to the completion of the subdivision that we would accept the roads. I think in good faith, if it's the pleasure of the council that you want to put a pause table on this, let us kind of delve into it with Mr. Hughes to see what kind of arrangements, concessions we could make. That would be one option, just something to throw out. But I did want to honor the commitment of at least getting it out there on the floor for discussion.
And just to add one final item, from what the residents have been coming into our office, and they have told us that because phase 2 has not happened, that if they have to maintain those roads, their HOA fees are going to, what did she say, like 300% increase? And they're already pretty high. So I just want to know that that's not something, but this is an over 55 community, so the fact that the second half has never been built, they built in the HOA fees into both phases, so. Road maintenance is not cheap, as you guys know.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I have a motion to table it, to do our due diligence.
Second discussion before motion.
I got a motion. You want to do a second for discussion?
Jim did a second.
Second for discussion.
All right. Let's have some discussion. Yes, sir.
Boy,
I didn't hear it.
how long do I have? First of all, I personally received a lot of personal interest about this issue from residents in that subdivision. particularly around the time when we were doing our budget discussions last year, which was when I was interacting with some of those people. I also was present when this development came before council, and I do want to commend staff to at least presenting this information to us, because this is the potential tip of an iceberg of things that happen certain ways in the past that we don't find out till much later that decisions have been made. And again, if this was done in a meeting, I did read the minutes, I did not go back and watch the video. So I appreciate the fact that I think we're being more transparent to our public as well as getting information to our council, to us about things like this. I think the potential for future development in that properties is very important. We need to move, however, we need to move very diligently to assure that if we are going to inherit this, and if we've already committed to inheriting it, what that means to the public, and ensure that moving forward will be a standard of care that will be acceptable to everybody. I think it also carries over to another public item that's concerning now. Similar type of situation where roads are being done, and not necessarily do we understand exactly how that's happening. So I didn't get too much information for the discussion, but what I wanted to say. So thanks, sir.
Thanks, Ben. Have a motion and a second for table. Any further discussion, council?
I think we do that with the anticipation of being able to make a decision on this in a timely manner.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you, council.
Thank you, Nick.
Item number 5, consideration of certification of anticipated military. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. So in your packet is a little bit of background on what this is. For the general public, you may recall that in the fall of last year, November, there was a referendum for approval. It was House Bill 581, in which it essentially put a cap on tax digest. And part of what that also did was that there's an additional House Bill 92 passed in the legislature this year relative to how governments proceed, local governments proceed with their anticipated millage rates. The legislature was attempting to make this a little more simplified, a little easier to understand, and quite candidly, it has done nothing but add to the confusion. So, with that, we have been reached out by the county to find out what the anticipated, the estimated rollback millage rate would be as they get ready to send out their notice of assessments. One conservative approach that most jurisdictions will use is last year's millage rate. So in your packet, there is a resolution that is up for consideration, which just merely points out that in accordance with House Bill 581 and House Bill 92, it requires the local governments to certify an estimated rollback millage rate to be included on the county's annual assessment notice, and the city manager recommends that the city council certify an estimated rollback rate for maintenance and operations at 6.221 mils for 2025. Now, that in and of itself does nothing in terms of the actual millage rate relative to when you adopt it after you receive the tax digest. So remember, 581 does require that the local tax digest throughout the state of Georgia, for those communities that have not opted out, we did not opt out. Therefore, the state is going to set a max that the digest can go up. And they haven't revealed that. Let's just say the CPI, Consumer Price Index, is 2.5%, then the digest cannot exceed that. So local governments will have a ceiling. So all of this will still have to move forward with the normal process. It's just an additional item that we have to do prior to the notice of assessments go out.
Anything further? Council, we give the floor for a motion to approve what has been presented.
Make a motion, we approve the anticipated millage rate, 6.221 mils.
Sure. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion, council?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
So we're basically just approving what our millage rate will probably be.
We have to give them something.
Yeah.
And so because this is the first year, the way that most communities are doing it, because of the unknowns, they're using their last year's millage rate.
So reflecting on the conversations of earlier about how such a moving target our budget and so forth is, and how we should appropriately do budget amendments and so forth and so on. And even though when we make these predictions, there always seems to be some sort of overreaction by either the public or other entities. All we're doing is satisfying the law so that we can move forward when we really get the numbers that we'll be able to use in our budget and so forth. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Mr. Douglas, are you aware of the county, when they did they advertise utilizing their current mill?
We were advised, however, reconciling their September 24 approval versus the resolution they approved, I think there may be some discrepancies. I did not talk with anyone in the county, but I believe Mr. Dobbs had communicated to Ms. Goldner that that's what they intended to do.
Yes, yes, they used last year's millage rate, is what he indicated to me.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, in terms of the motion on the table, I just would like for the record to add that reflecting as a resolution. Because there's some unknowns, I just want to make sure that if it requires a resolution in addition to the certification, that we just include that in motion for our minutes.
Mr. Looney, your motion is for resolution 2025-07.
Yes, sir.
That's the second, Mr. Ham?
Correct, yes, sir.
Awesome. Motion second. Any further discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed, same? Thank you, council. Item number 6, consideration to purchase 2 public works and water department vehicles. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, sir. So I hope you all were able to read my email, but I will just recap.
Which one?
Exactly, thank you, sir. So I've spoken with a few of y'all, but essentially the auction that we had in April did afford us the opportunity to have some surplus funds that had not been encumbered and had not been budgeted. However, due to the fact that we were able to hire a person for a budgeted position in our sewer maintenance, so there had been a position budgeted unfilled. We were able about 6 weeks or so ago to get a new team member on board. That's what then precipitated the conversation from Charles Jones, Director of Water Wastewater, to say, hey, if there's an opportunity to utilize any monies, he would like to be able to secure a vehicle for this individual. Now, clearly, you all know, May the 23rd, there was a pretty significant water leak on A.W. Lawson. We do have 2 working directors, Charles Jones, Josh Davis. Both their vehicles are inadequate to pull heavy equipment. Under some circumstances, you would not expect the director to be having to pull heavy equipment, but we are not some places, and you further wouldn't expect them to jump into a hole to try to do a wraparound, and yet that's what we have. So this is merely out of necessity, that from an operational perspective, it does not have any adverse effect on the enterprise or general fund. We would, when we do the budget amendments, reflect the inflow of revenue for those funds with the out of capital. Charles was able to talk with several dealerships, I believe you have in your packet. I may have misquoted a few $100s, but I think the overall for a local dealership, Day Chevrolet, they did quote two 3500 HDs, which does have the towing capacity for the excavator skid steer of 53,600. I think in my recommendation to you all, just in terms of needing maybe other things, we would ask for 110,000, not to exceed, even though it would probably come closer to 106, 107. But just would like y'all's consideration.
Thank you, sir. Council, yield before for a motion with a not to exceed amount as recommended by staff at 110,000.
Make a motion to approve the purchase.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed, same? Thank you, council. Item number 7, consideration of Motorola radio purchase. Chief Sheriff, Chief Dawkins, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're going to talk to you a little bit about this radio project we got going on. But first, I wanted to mention something that kind of stood out for me. As I was listing earlier, I heard the auditor mention 64%. Was that right? 64. So, and that was what? Above what?
Usually 35 to 50%.
It's usually 35 to 50. But at the same time, if we are basing our decisions and our investments on the average, what do we generally get if we put an average amount of effort, an average amount of investment into something? We usually get average results, right? And I know for us, average results is not what we're looking for. We're not looking for an average service in our public safety entities. We're looking for exceptional. And we appreciate the investment you've made in us, and the equipment, and the time, the effort, as well as the citizens allowing you to do that and supporting it. So, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for the investment you've made in us. And we might happen to be here to ask for another investment. So, but we've discussed this radio project in the work session and in committee before, so you've heard a lot of facts and figures about it. Right now, I'll let Chief Dawkins talk a little bit about some experiences he's had with current radio communications that kind of justify why we're here and explain that. And then I'll kind of come in with some particulars.
So, it's really new. Y'all are familiar with the incident, somewhat with the incident last night. Is a prime example of our radio communication. So Pioneer Road is very short in nature of many of our roads. I can stand and look at officers and try to talk to them through our radio. Sometimes it would go through, sometimes it would not. Case in point, fire was sitting up staging and they had trouble hearing us sometimes. They could hear us, and I did find out they can talk to us now, so that is good. Something I spoke earlier about that was kind of wrong, but just in that small area, and we're downtown, and that was a very critical situation last night. And that's why this whole radio project is something we have to have. At some point, it's gonna have to happen. I've been here 20 years, and we have talked about radios, talked about repeaters, and our city has grown. I think from 4.3 square miles to I think we're like almost 8.2 square miles now. Something that I affect 10.5 miles of 515. And if we're down at the racetrack, it's obsolete. Radios, now the car radios are one thing, but we're talking about handhelds. This right here. This does not work at the racetrack. This does not work inside Walmart. And that's just, Walmart's just a metal building. I mean, that's part of it. And it's just one of them things, I've said it for 3 years now. We're very blessed and we're very lucky in this city. And at some point, one of those is gonna run out, and I really don't want to be, I don't want it to run out. And if it does run out, I want to be prepared to be able to communicate with all our other agencies that we have available. So that's just a little bit of background of where we're at. I can give you, I'll give you one more thing, and it's just the way it is. I'm not making excuses, but so on that scene, I had Pickens SO helping, Cherokee County SWAT was there, fire was there, we were there. So Pickens cannot talk to us. We cannot talk to Pickens, they can hear us. Well, I have, I think, 4 deputies out in the woods on the perimeter that I can't talk to. They have to talk to one of my guys that's standing there next to them, if they're there next to them. Other than that, they're just out there. That's dangerous. Cherokee County showed up and they were able to actually talk to us. It's kind of weird, but they're on that whole new grand system. And that's just that's just one particular thing. And it just happened to happen last night. And I'll probably go back to that scene again on something else we'll talk about later, but that's just kind of a rundown.
So to talk about a little about what we're trying to do and the problems we have, this is not just a city of Jasper issue, this is a public safety countywide issue. We're all operating on the same type of radio systems. We're all using the same type of portable radios. These radios that we're using now that were not meant for public safety, they were meant for industry. Same radios you'll see the school system using in the schools, which that's another area that we cannot communicate in. Schools, we have no reception, we can't transmit out. Hospital, just add a couple to what you Dawkins mentioned. One way we're working with this new technology to overcome those issues is these new radios. There's a critical connect feature, which is basically smart technology. So in addition to using the regular radio frequencies to help expand our coverage, we're going to be using LTE cell phone networks. We can use those to communicate over the same channels, but it'll use cell service where we don't have radio service. Also, we use Wi-Fi access that we can store up to 25 predetermined Wi-Fi networks in there. So that can be our schools and our hospital and things like that we know we don't have good reception in. And that'll automatically swap over and transmit there. Because right now you walk in the hospital, it's a dead zone. You're not transmitting out. You cell phone only, so only it's going to work. So that's some of the ways that this overcomes it on the fire side. More particularly, these are only radios that are public safety rated as far as intrinsically safe. So if you go into an area, let's say we go to gas leak, which we go a lot of gas leaks, you have a lower explosive limit and an upper explosive limit. If you think about your mix on your fuel ratio in your car, if you go over the upper explosive limit, you're running rich, it's not going to burn very well. If you're under the lower, it's not going to burn at all. So in between that range, though, is when it's explosive. And a non-intrinsically safe radio, such as the ones we use now, can emit a spark that could ignite that. That's why you can see home explosions and things like that. There was just one in the Northeast that was triggered by a radio for a public safety professional that was there. So this eliminates that and gives us the Smart Connect features. It is a step in the direction we're trying to go towards P25, which P25 is the public safety compliant radio system. It's what you'll see in everywhere from Cherokee south of us. Dawson's onboarding one as well in 2026. Bartow's already there, so it's coming our way. The Sheriff's Office has been pushing for it for several years. And this gets us out ahead of the curve as far as already having these portables. Now, the reason we have this here for you now, in addition to that, is the pricing and the incentives that Motorola is offering us. So this expires on June 15th, but right now, the project has no interest, payments for 5 years, and we don't have to make the first payment until June of 2026. There is an additional component which is $10,800 a year, and that's the critical connect features. That was included in the original price, but broken out because Motorola couldn't finance those features, so it would be an annual payment as well, but it would meet the overall project total. So that will allow us to go ahead and get the technology up front and not have to pay debt service, stretch those payments out over 5 years. Also, if Pickens County decides to go ahead and upgrade their system, it won't have us being reactionary and having to go buy radios all of a sudden. And that puts us in a better position. The 0% financing that expires on the 15th, also the discounts they've given us, and they're expecting a price increase after the 15th due to what they are citing as tariffs. But the expectation is this project after June 15th, the same exact project will cost an initial $200,000 to $300,000. So that's why we're kind of here urgent. We're here presenting to you and looking for you to approve this project if possible.
Any further, chiefs? Thank you both. Council, hearing the information before you, this is for a 5-year lease purchase agreement for Motorola. Yield the floor.
I make the motion to go ahead and get the Motorola system part in our product.
I have a motion for approval, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion, council?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Chiefs, you can't always think that because I say something that you understand the direction I'm coming from. And so I don't want you to think that my questions or my comments earlier in the day that I don't support you or this project.
Understood.
But I do have some comments that I'd kind of like to make. As it relates to the audit and us spending greater than average on our public safety. I like to use a term around here called best practices, and we always want to do best practices. I'm excited about this project because I've been hearing about radios for 9 years. And it was always hand-me-downs and something that somebody else wanted to give us for cheaper than what we could buy it ourselves for. And so I'm glad that we finally come full circle to the point where the point is we can now communicate with those around us, including other counties and such. And so that was one of the points I made. So we need to quit saying that our expenses are going up and we're providing the same services. And in reflection of that, we need to support our staff when they make suggestions on us on how we can pay for this with planning rather than reactionary terms to how much something costs because of the discounts they're throwing at us. It's also a little bit disappointing. I was a very strong proponent of the 6-year SPOS, and we partnered on some projects the last time, and the state incentivizes us for that. And I don't want to get too controversial, but these are my words, not the entire council. So I think when we're talking about partnering with our county on radios that they want to use and other counties around us are using, it would make sense to me that we would partner on something like this for a SPOS project. And I'm sure I'll probably have more comments on that when we talk about SPOS specifically. So, y'all have done a great job of making our city safer. And I think we're all proud of the fact that we've supported you pretty much universally. And we've heard this song and dance before about we don't have to pay for it till next week. But to the point where some of us really, it's not it's not the money. It's the best practice. And I think this will move us forward. I really do. So thank you for the time.
Any further discussion, council?
I also think this is a safety issue.
Absolutely.
Keep it simple.
If it was an officer down, it'd be a different thing.
Yeah, this is a safety issue.
Well, the way I look at it, if it saves one life, it's paid for itself, so I can see that happening. And I mean, I use radios every day, and down by the racetrack, it's awful. Your cell phone don't work out. So by being able to have the best system, gives you a lot more opportunities. I think it just makes sense.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so? Thank you, chiefs, and before you leave, where you're at, I'd like to make a comment. There is sanctity to life. And all of us have a timer. And we all know that life comes to an end. But as the two of you stand here today, yesterday was a pretty rough day. Not just for y'all and your staff, but for the community that was scared and also an individual that was in crisis. There are individuals that are military veterans, there are individuals that are dealing with mental health issues, and you and your staff stepped up and was able to provide a level of service that was needed in order to protect the sanctity of life yesterday. The situation could have ended much differently. And if I'm being honest, that was my fear. I am so thankful for both of you, your departments, and our partners at Cherokee, at Pickens SO, the County Fire Department. What occurred yesterday was the best possible outcome for one of our residents. One of our locals who does matter, who does have a family, but may have some problems. We're able to get him assistance and take care of the situation. You overcome a lot of obstacles yesterday. And hopefully through the action of this council, those obstacles won't be there much longer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for the jobs y'all have been doing and getting us up to par.
Now let's get some new radios.
Yes.
That work.
Item number 8, consideration of utilization of city properties. You're still standing there.
Now, let's see what they want. Go ahead.
This was discussed in a work session.
Thank you again, this was discussed at a work session. Training is important, and training is something that both departments have really ramped up. Unfortunately, we don't really have facilities to train at. Classroom training is great, but a lot of times when we're talking about high-stress situations, that needs to be muscle memory, that needs to be something that is ingrained through physical training, that's repetitive, that is as realistic as we can get it, and doing so safely, that is. That's something we do in the fire service, timed evolutions, anything we can do to add a little bit of stress to the training will help in the positive result when it happens in the field. So we have looked at some different ideas and areas to try and come up with a solution to doing physical training and having the facilities to do that. We've both identified city-owned properties that we think are not being utilized for anything as far as, that would prohibit us from doing the training, as best we can tell, but they're already city-owned. One of them is behind borderline maintenance, and another one is property on Cove Road that we both feel we could use to develop out, and also both departments could do training at both locations. I'll let Chief Dawkins talk about what he's got as far as planning for the location of these that are.
Yeah, so the property we were looking at is off Cove Road. We would use the property for marksmanship, so a range, smaller range, or 25-yard or 50-yard range. But that's just a small part of what this would be used for. So go back to situational training. What we had last night, domestic disputes. That's one of probably domestic disputes and traffic stops are more officers are probably killed on those than anything. So we don't get we get a lot of academic training. We don't get a lot of hands-on training, not because we don't want to, we just don't have the area to do it. We use sim rounds, which are soap. They look like a bullet, comes out of a gun, but it makes you duck, makes you cover, makes you be more aware of what you're doing. Situational training will be that, again, muscle memory. Luckily, we don't have a lot of what happened last night on a daily basis. That's great, which means we need to train more in it. So when it does happen, it's muscle memory. We're not having to go backwards. Domestic disputes. I actually had a conversation with all the officers. A domestic dispute can go, and I know y'all watch the news like everybody else. Something very small, we think it's just an argument. An officer steps out of the car and the first thing they do is take it around. It happens, there's books out there on it. So we want to utilize this area to get material, make hallways, make entry points. So we learn how to clear houses, how to approach houses. Even having fire come down there, we all work together for active shooter scenes. So if we do ever have to endure something like that, when we get on scene, everybody's on the same page. We're not stumbling over ourselves, trying to figure out what to do. It's going to be, again, muscle memory. Saying that, places will be utilized a lot. This is not something that's going to be once a year, twice a year. I'm talking maybe 3-4 times a month, maybe 2-3 times a week, depending on what the situation is or how we're going to train. So it's going to be utilized a lot. As far as fire, I can discuss a little more on that.
Well, it's very similar for us as well. The more we do it, the better we are at it. As far as especially the physical attributes of what we're doing our job day to day. For us, we see that location on Pioneer Road to where the back half of the property is not really being utilized. We do a lot of different things out there as far as vehicle fire props, flammable liquids, pressurized container, trash heap extrication, things that we can do in that open space, relatively low cost as well. And then eventually we would try and build that out to have a burn building there to where we could do our live fire training. But obviously the fire department right now, we're in the middle of Station 14, so that would be a further down the road project for us. What I'm looking for and what Chief Officers look for is your direction and whether or not we're approved to use these properties and start moving in that direction.
Thank you, sir. Council hearing from chiefs, yield the floor for a motion to approve their use of the properties as mentioned. Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, council?
So there's no, dollar amount that we're applying to this?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Well,
We're waiting for July. I have some things after the motion. I was gonna just kind of wrap everything up, the last two items from staff's perspective.
well, again, reflecting on my last discussion, it's, I think it'd be good if we could partner with our county counterparts on these type of things that involve, citizens of Jasper and Pickens County and our other cities, Nelson and, talking about,
Yeah, that's one of the things that I had asked earlier, is just give an opportunity to work with our county the county partners, and it certainly does. So I think that's very important.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed, same. I apologize, I caught you the wrong count, sir. Thank you, chiefs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9, consideration of requested splosh list. Me and you.
And if I could, I wanted to wrap up the last two items. So tomorrow during our department leaders meeting, I stayed silent today so that chief and chief cannot accuse me of torpedoing any sort of consideration that y'all may have. So from a budgetary perspective, Dr. Proctor, what we had kind of teed up was that the radio equipment was something that there's still a lot of unknowns. However, the synopsis I provided you all relative to what you heard tonight from the audit was we do have an unassigned fund balance of $3.9 million. That's of January 1. As of January 1, we had passed a budget for 2025 that was using $400,000+ of that. So again, the way that audits work, budgets work, it's just living, breathing. So our true unassigned fund balance right now is about $3.5 million. So relative to the need, I think that y'all stated it very eloquently that we just do it. Because from SPLOST, general fund, debt service, 1 year that you don't have to pay, free interest, it is the great move to make. And I think what Lindsay and I are going to work on is providing kind of a 2025 budget amendments for July 7th that's going to reflect what it would look like in terms of if we utilized one-time SPLOST monies, one-time capital monies, just to kind of paint the picture for you that the small investments you make is going to pay huge dividends. Relative to also the audit, Dr. Proctor and others, this is where it does get a little, at times when you hear an auditor say 64%, what you don't hear is of the general fund positions, there's about 70% of those positions. So because we're not top heavy like some jurisdictions, it will skew the numbers because we do invest in our actual people, fire services, police services, versus heavy on admin. The way you hear me sometimes joke about, it's Lindsay. Yes, she's got a team. She's got some folks, but it's Lindsay. She doesn't have a deputy finance director. She doesn't have 4 accountants. Same way with Mary, same way with Lori. Because we invest in our actual operations, it is unorthodox again that we're having to make the investment into the fire services and police, and it does skew the numbers. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that, once again, when the public hears that, there's a lot of things that are unique about Jasper. But just take hold that, we have to continue to make these investments because we have people that are otherwise being hired that are coming from jurisdictions that otherwise, this is just a normal thing that they've had 10, 15 years ago. With regards to the training, I do appreciate, respect, and where I come from, it is 100% joint efforts, but you always have to have specified areas as well in terms of the way that our local police officers will respond in more of an urban, denser environment is going to be vastly different than the more rural, relative to any calls, relative to any sort of fire, same type of situation. Our jurisdiction is such that we run a lot of med calls and or vehicle accidents, the coordinated services. So I don't disagree with you, Dr. Proctor, that I think it would be ideal for some sort of joint projects, but I don't think it eliminates the need for us to have some utilization of these public spaces that you've already authorized. So part of what we had threw out there was a very small fraction of about $75,000 each that we could invest into. So a burn building could cost you $400,000 or $500,000. That is not within the scope of anything. This is just kind of seed money to, number one, authorize the use of these public properties and to utilize some fund balance monies to help supplement the areas that, because it's unbudgeted, if they were to try to approach Lindsay and say, hey, we need to buy this, she'd have to say no, whether it's $1 or $100 because there's no budget. So just be mindful that the July 7th, we'll try to tile this up, from a ordinance perspective for that. Mr. Mayor, segueing straight into the actual agenda item, the SPLOST list. I just want to take a moment, if I could. Again, just you've got some supplemental information in front of you. We talked about this at the May 22nd work session, but we had been asked by the county via official letter to meet on June the 10th. The county has requested for the mayors of Jasper, Nelson, and Talking Rock to discuss a list of projects for a 5-year SPLOST. So you saw a little bit of my presentation. I won't recap completely from the work session, but I do want to make sure that you all are aware that there are essentially 2 ways of doing a SPLOST, special purpose local option sales tax. The way the state law is written, it is 100% up to the county to control. So they have essentially said that they're going to move forward with a 5-year SPLOST versus doing an intergovernmental agreement that could afford a 6-year, 1 additional year of collection. And the way to do that is to essentially get us on board because statutorily we are comprised of 50% or more of the city populations. So the only signature required to make the IGA valid would be ours. The other 2 communities could sign if they so choose. You heard, we won't recap all of the projects, but we did ask the team to kind of come up with some operational items. Similarly to, these are capital items that you're gonna have to pay for anyway. Because in order to function as a local government, you have to have certain things. We're not talking about shovels, we're talking about a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 work truck to go and pull an excavator. So those are things that you're gonna have to pay for, whether it's the general fund, enterprise fund, fund balance, and it's better to utilize SPLOST money because for every dollar that is collected, we do get at least 12%, 12 pennies. So although that may seem marginal, it does help offset the cost. So we can go through the list, but what I've advised some of you that I think we can have a discussion about, you've got operational and then you've got project-based. So in regards to project base, you heard Kim at the work session and Mary talk about the vast quantity of stuff, 77 million versus net worth of water, wastewater projects in our draft master plan, 8 million in stormwater, 8 million just to keep status quo with the pavement assessment. So when you start thinking about that's a lot of money, 90-something million, well, the SPLOST is projected to yield about 60 million. So that would be a huge opportunity for us to capture some of those project-based needs. However, due to the fact that the method that the county has identified as one to use is based upon population, it means that ours is 12%, 12 pennies. So that out of about 60 million, it would yield about 7 million, 7.2 million for us. So in speaking with some of y'all, I know there's been a lot of concern about, well, how do we do this? How do we do the operational, project-based? And I will tell you, it's very difficult because in the 2020 SPLOST, I believe there was a projection of 37 million. And so in just a very quick, short period of time, we're looking at yielding 60 plus million because of the efforts of 80%, 70, 80% of every SPLOST dollar that comes through is generated due to our efforts, and we get 12 pennies. So I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if you want to go through and say, hey, of the list, I would not advise trying to itemize.
No, sir.
I think what would be worth discussing is if there's a percentage you all are comfortable with as council, advising the mayor, hey, we still don't know if at this June 10th meeting, if the county would be receptive to a 6-year IGA, meaning what that affords. There's been some questions asked about the rigidity of a 5-year versus 6-year. So in the resolution for the actual referendum, the way that it read for us was that the city of Jasper, roads, streets, sidewalks, bridge projects, including but not limited to facilities, equipment, material necessary to build, maintain, repair roads, streets, sidewalks, and bridges, water, sewer facilities, public safety, including but not limited to vehicles, equipment, and facilities for fire, EMS, police, and 911, parks and recreation projects and facilities for all the benefits of the city of Jasper. So Dr. Proctor alluded to it earlier in his comments in the meeting that the state, the reason they afford some leniency in regards to the IGA is they say, look, if you can come up with some idea of how to do the SPLOST allocations, it will afford you one additional year to collect, and there's less rigidity in terms of honing in on a certain percentage. You can just use that language in the referendum, and then as projects and other things come up, it affords us the opportunity to not have to use general fund monies, and it allows us to get monies from people who are traveling through and spending their money. Because remember, you heard Sam tonight say, the auditor, 25-30% of our general fund budget is from ad valorem property taxes. So in terms of what we're trying to do is being good stewards of our citizens to say, look, we don't want to be heavily 50%, 60% like some communities have to, because we can utilize some lost proceeds and some other revenues to diversify, so you're not just reliant on property taxes, because 25 to 30% is a pretty good mix that we have. But it does fall short of the capital needs that are necessary. So all of this over a period of decades starts to add up as a community progresses and grows. And if there aren't these type of opportunities to where you say, hey, we'll give you 20%, 30% worth of SPOS proceeds, since you essentially are responsible for 70, 80% of the reason we get it. This could start making a huge win for some of these projects.
So would you look for a project versus operational percentage?
I think the team and I, we've kind of spoken, and I think what we would at least, because we don't know how the 10th is going to transpire, we don't want to just tie you up, Mayor, and say, well, council's approved 100% just to go towards the operational, and it leaves 1.7 million for projects. Conversely, you don't want to say, well, we've got 90-something million worth of these, 7 million, just assign it to all of those projects, because then what's going to happen is when you do need a police vehicle, the reason we've been able to do our inventory is from SPOS proceeds. So it hasn't had to been a general fund purchase. So trying to find that balance and that mix, as an example, if you were to say that 7.2 million is going to be our collection, could be 9 million, could be 8 million, I don't know. If you say that 50% is tied to project-based, and or just say, well, water, sewer, and then the other 50% is then based upon operational needs of the buckets, that's where you can then assign 2.5% here, 5% here, 10% here. I've spoken with a few of you. I think what I'd like to do is find out, Mayor, how the 10th goes. Maybe July 7th at our next meeting, we'll at least know, hey, this is how the referendum's going to move forward. It's going to be a 5-year. Here's their projections of collections. And at that point, solidify the list. Because at that point, it's my understanding, Mr. Seifman, correct me, if it's a 5-year, there's really nothing more for the cities to do because we're not executing any official document. And the county at that point does all the heavy lifting with the referendum and get in on the ballot.
So do we know if this meeting coming up, is it a public hearing, a public meeting, less than quorum? Who's invited, who's restricted? Any of those things?
The letter just invited the mayors of the cities to come and bring a list of projects.
My intention is to take both Brandon and Kim with me. The other intention is, Council, as you're aware, I spoke to the chairman briefly at a previous meeting and mentioned to him that partnership would be a great way to move forward, making things right for our community, as we've discussed many years ago with the chair. And I'm optimistic that they will hear us out and that they're willing to come to the table to negotiate a 6-year IGA. That's what our community is used to. That's what this city is willing to do. We want to negotiate, we want to partner, we want to do things in good faith. And I am hopeful that when the three of us go to that meeting, that our partners come to the table with the same thought process. Although, as Mr. Douglas mentioned, we can't force that, we'll certainly relay that message that we're here for the greater good.
And if I could just add another element, just again, going back to the kind of unorthodox way that things have shaped out over the last decades, good, bad, or indifferent, it is important to note that it is based upon census data. So with respect to the fact that the 2010 census to the 2020 census, statistically, the county has grown at 13%, versus the city has only grown to 10%. So relative to our own population growth, managed controlled growth during the census periods, we have been less growing minded. So if there is a contention of, hey, we need more SPOS monies because of the growth we're experiencing, admittingly, I just wanted to disclose that they have grown faster statistically in the census than the city. So good, bad, or indifferent, just wanted to make sure that you all are aware of that. And also, with regards to our water sewer, although we have just over 4,000 residents, I believe the way that we report to EPD, our water customers are about 16,000. So again, because there was a philosophy decades ago, we are servicing a great number of county residents relative to their water needs, and it is unusual relative to some other jurisdictions. So Dr. Proctor, with regards to, when you start trying to compare apples and apples, it is difficult. And I think it's important for you all to know that when we are trying to make decisions for our residents, and be good stewards of our residents, there is the underlying element that there's a considerable amount more of customers that utilizing some additional SPLOST proceeds to go towards those capital improvements needed for water would go a long way.
So that is part of the conversation also, is the water customers. The ability for us to dedicate ourselves at a certain percentage, whether it's 50%, 75%, 40% of SPLOST into water and sewer, that would benefit both entities, city and county. The county has taken heat. When we did our increases, they've taken heat when we've had issues in our system, and they've had to communicate with their constituents that, yes, you're a county resident, but your service is with the city of Jasper for water. So the county felt that pressure, they felt that heat. They'll benefit from us also having us each year and going through this. What I would like to ask, and Council, I can yield before if someone wants to make a motion that above and beyond the amount based on population, if council would authorize me to negotiate a higher percentage for a 6-year, if that's something someone's willing to entertain.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, council? Yes, sir.
It's just very frustrating and disheartening for us to be making motions about negotiating with our county when there haven't been conversations about it. That's all I'll say.
Yes, sir.
That's me talking, I pressed it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you, council. Do you have anything further on number 9, sir?
Do we want to do some sort of list composition of percentages, project-based versus, if you're asked at the meeting, what's the list of projects, I just wanted to make sure council has the ability to provide that to us.
Council, are we comfortable providing the entire list and allowing the administration to prioritize that based on discussions with the county?
I see no reason not to.
Mr. Douglas and Ms. Golder can come back with recommendations of 50-50, 60-40, 25-75, based on their professional experiences and what we discussed in that meeting on the 10th. We'll report back.
The final answer is we have to have that done before the referendum is written, correct?
Yes. And we will be prepared. Item number 10, Mr. Seifman, I had a question for you. Consideration of personnel policy. We had a discussion for some of the elected. Is there anything in the personnel policy that we can discuss in executive session, or does all that need to occur?
Since it's a generic policy, not as to specific employees, I don't think we can discuss any of it in executive session.
Thank you, sir.
And if that's gonna be the case, what I'd like for us to prepare a workshop with all the council. Miss Lori and Jim, and put a lot of work into it, and I don't want, it's a lot of reading, a lot of stuff. I've read it twice already, and I'd like for us to have a workshop and kind of discuss and go over, what all we believe, and that way we can concentrate on it.
I want to call a point of order, Mr. Mayor. I apologize, John, but this has been the committee for months and months and months. It's been before the council and was put on the consent agenda, and now we're going to turn around and take it back to I don't know who we're taking it back.
I was just asking the workshop.
So, point of orders for the record, Mr. President, I will have to recognize this was placed on consent by council at the last meeting. I did remove it from consent based on your feedback. Council that was present at the time went ahead and put it on consent. My intention is to ask for a vote on this personnel policy tonight.
Okay, that's fine.
Any further discussion on personnel policy? Yield the floor for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the personnel policy as distributed, studied, and been around a while.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you, council. Before we move over to committee report updates, Mr. Soffin, I do want to pick your brain, sir. As I sat here and listened and was taking mental notes on item 3, which was one of the variance requests for Cradle, the fourth variance, the first variance had a motion for approval that was not passed. Do we need a motion for denial?
We have gotten into that opposite side of the coin issue before.
Yes, sir, we have. I want to avoid it.
And it's come up in litigation, so I agree with your thought that we probably need to do a formal motion to deny it, just to be sure we don't come up with the same litigation issue.
Yes, sir. So council, number 3 on the agenda, variance number 1 was the variance to section 94-96 to increase the allowed metal on publicly visible exterior building facades from 10 to 80%. There was a motion to approve. There was a second. That motion failed. I'll yield the floor for a motion on that item again for denial as the approval failed.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion, council? Thank you, Mr. Snowden, that literally came to us as we were talking earlier. All in favor? Opposed, same. Thank you, sir. Thank you, council. Now we'll move on to committee report updates, development local infrastructure. Development local infrastructure committee.
Anybody?
Any report there?
I don't have any report.
I don't know.
Okay.
Ask a question on signs, are y'all still looking at that?
Then,
So out of committee, we've gotten, staff is just a matter of us getting together to the committee to give them a recommendation on the size and the number. And I don't know about locations, but I know those two. And then some sort of modified version of how to integrate other signs such as feathers or weekend directionals into consideration. We have met, we talked about it. We've just not produced a recommendation to the committee to come to council yet.
that was our last meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, committee, finance and admin.
Thank you to the finance department for their work in our audit, and to all other departments for their contributions to it. It's a good audit. It's good to have them.
Enterprise. Is there any update on enterprise?
The only thing I'd like to say is that time and time again, we demonstrate that we have done our due diligence in evaluating our water and sewer and garbage issues, and we are actively working on designing and solving those solutions and have dedicated funds to it. It doesn't seem to sink in with the folks that are most loudest about the things that we do and the things that we don't do. It really is not, didn't set out to be one of our issues, even though we knew it was one years ago, but it's evolved to the point where we've done a thorough job in developing a master plan. We've developed a capital improvement plan, and now we're seeking ways to fund it, so. I think the magnitude of the problem, even though certainly some of the other issues that we are spending money on, the magnitude of that problem overshadows the fact that we still have other things that we need to spend dollars on. And a little bit defensively, that was my comment about the spending of our public safety. We're doing that because we needed to. And so, thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
No other comment.
Parks and Properties.
We had a pretty good showing, when we dedicated the new park. We appreciate, all the local folks, that showed up. It was just a really good event. I'm gonna give, kudos to staff. I think it went really well and well attended.
Yeah, Peace Park right after that, and so proud to be partnering with Keep Pickens Beautiful and did some work up there and adding some plants and some vegetables, and it was great. And I brought my girls up there so they got a chance to volunteer and also work with those in the community. So proud of that and looking forward to things coming out from the ground and growing.
Public Safety.
Just grateful for you guys and everything that happened last night, and then again, just proud that we're investing time, money, resources into you guys. You're a special part of our community, and just thankful for you guys. So keep doing a great job.
Thank you very much. City Manager, comments?
Yes, sir. Got only about a few. I would like to ask if Chief Dawkins could come up just real quick. I know since our last meeting, again, May 5th to June 2nd, but I do want to just recognize Chief Dawkins, although I think unbeknownst to him, there had already been a lot of Facebook chatter because people at Downtown Live on the 10th of May were congratulating me, but you did graduate.
Yes.
Don't forget, it's not even a month. So
I haven't forgotten.
So what did you achieve, sir?
My master's in public safety administration.
So just want so shortly thereafter, and you're good, Chief, thank you. So shortly thereafter, we kind of had the kickoff, unofficial to our event season. Downtown Live was the 10th, and albeit it was a little chilly, I think it was well ran from the team. Mr. Faust and Mr. Hanna has talked a little bit about some other successful items. We did have Art Walk on the 16th. Perot Park is out to bid, so hopefully by the July 7th, you'll have that on your agenda. Just in response of delivering. I mentioned earlier about the A.W. Lawson. That's just and just immediately, when I show up sometimes, I like to announce it and broadcast it to you all because these things happen every day. Just like today, the team was up working on an issue that had happened a week or so ago. It took them a while, but they went up and did it, so great job, Charles. Thank you for continuing to invest in the team with the resources they need. I will tell you, it's a heck of a lot easier for them to have options of mobilizing equipment. So thank you for that. Memorial Day, again, we had a very successful Memorial Day event down at Veterans Park last Monday. So I just wanted to thank the team for that. And I think Kim, there's something else going on.
Yes, so this coming Friday, D-Day anniversary, is actually going to be the dedication of the expanded Veterans Memorial. And so everyone is invited to that, 11 o'clock at the Veterans Memorial Park in Lee Newton. So we invite everyone to come out. That is a really special place out there. They've done a beautiful job. And it is a very fitting tribute to those who have served and to those we've lost. So.
I was there today, it's really nice.
It is, it's gorgeous.
I do, just because I think that it can be confusing, but thank you all for the certification of the anticipated millage rate in accordance with House Bill 581, House Bill 92. Again, That does not preempt anything that we're going to be doing later this summer, early fall. So whatever is out there relative to millage, nothing was done more than complying with the provisions in those House bills. So we're gonna continue to have a conversation later on, once we get the digest, once we can kind of get some more firm numbers. I just thought it needed to be reiterated for clarification. Obviously, we continue to talk about all the good stuff, and Downtown Live, believe it or not, is coming up next weekend. So not this coming up Saturday, but the next Saturday. And so just wanted to bring that up. And Kim, I think, is it today or tomorrow you're submitting something? Just to kind of follow up from the report session.
Sure, so we had discussed at the May 22nd work session, council authorizing us proceeding with the Play It Forward grant for converting the tennis courts to pickleball courts. I am nearly finished with that. It's due tomorrow by like 9 p.m. I'll have it awarded. So we're on page 11 so far, so.
Is this 11 official pages or is it?
Oh yes, it's 11 official pages, thank you. But we'll have that turned in tomorrow. We do anticipate, I've talked with a couple of different folks from USA Pickleball that feel we have, a fairly decent chance. Good for us, there aren't that many applicants for these grants. There are two $50,000 grants. Their request is very simple. Use it for the things that you are actually saying that you're going to use it for. And I think that if we are so lucky as to be awarded, we can do a lot of good over there on the tennis courts. So we're looking forward to hearing about that in August is when we should hear about that grant.
And
The Golden Touch Awards.
Golden Touch, and
It's a lot of pressure.
there's no match, correct?
There is no match. That is correct. So, based on information that, on a similar size project that was done last year, converting some tennis courts to pickleball courts, just like we would be doing, it was about $27,000 to resurface, paint, new striping, the netting, all of that good stuff. We're obviously gonna factor in a little contingency on that because we don't know what pricing is going to be like by the time that we hear this. The fencing has been recommended around the tennis courts to bring that down. It is currently the tall tennis court fencing. Don't need that for pickleball. So they obviously would recommend that we would redo that fencing. It is looking a little tired. If we have to make do with what we have for the time being, we certainly will. But I feel like we can adequately use that $50,000 to accomplish both of those items.
And we do, just for y'all curious, when Kim goes to submit applications for grants and stuff, what we do is her enter key is gold. So that way it just reinforces when she hits that. So just little secret, and I think
Lord, y'all are gonna be sorely disappointed when I don't get this right. Okay, y'all have built it way up too much.
so. I think we want to celebrate, Mayor, and we'll kind of end on some celebration of some anniversaries.
Yes. So my favorite part of the evening, we have the Police and Fire work anniversary show. Apparently, June was very popular for Police and Fire. Save one person, Doug Jones. We're gonna cover him first. With our utilities department, 5 years. Jill Anzinger, 19 years with the police department. That is a big accomplishment. We have Matthew Bagley with the fire department, 2 years. Our fire marshal, Greg Chapman with the fire department, 2 years. We have our chiefs of police, Assistant Chief Mike Davis, 3 years. And our chief, Matt Dawkins, 17 years. So congratulations to them. Blake Deast with the police department is 1 year. And then we have Jesse Johnson with fire, 2 years. John Jones with fire for 4 years. Dallas McHale with the fire department for 2 years. And then Assistant Chief Ian Norton. I have 12 that I can count, and I feel like there's a lot of pluses after that because I think he's been here in some capacity for a very long time.
23.
Yes. Okay. 23, 25, 30, I don't know. So, but we're appreciative of all of the years that he has been with us and all of these folks. This is who makes everything that gets done look very easy. So.
Anything further?
Oh, I do want to say, the ribbon cutting, or actually the workout at Peace Park, we just found out on Friday that Hall Brothers is actually donating all of the mulch and the soil and I believe the pavers and things like that they brought out for Peace Park. And so that's a huge benefit. So wanted to definitely throw out a big thank you to Hall Brothers for that. So.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
City council comments. Council? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to mayor comments. Number one, Friday is a special day, so please join us at Veterans Memorial Park as we dedicate phase 2. Ms. Lindsay, thank you. We have made it through another audit season. To your entire team. Something that was mentioned during the audit tonight that people will often skim over is where those 2 lines crossed on that graph. That was a hard moment for your customer service staff. And I appreciate all the hours and all the phone calls that they took. This elected body did the right thing and your staff stuck through it and I appreciate it. We all do. For Public Works and Water Crew, Mr. Davis, thank you. Hearing about you jumping in and saving the day on a couple of items. Your work does not go unnoticed, sir. We appreciate you and Mr. Charles, although Mr. Charles is probably at home with his feet propped up right now, and it's very much so deserved.
Mayor, I do have one thing, if that's all right.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry. This weekend, I'm planning a walk with a councilman over at Union Park. I'd love to invite the public. It's gonna be Saturday from 10 to 12, give or take, and we can stay around if need be. But would love to see everyone out there. And then also to hope that the weather plays nice, so we'll say that.
Yes. All right, we have an executive session listed as the next item on our agenda with the title of legal. Entertain a motion to go into executive session for that purpose.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, council? All in favor? Opposed, same? We are in executive session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us.